Okay, once we hit lower elementary, the students are beginning to learn levels of abstraction. So it's not always going to be attached to a physical object like in beginnings and primary. And we're going to do Dr. Montessori's grammar symbols in 2 sentences or less. In the same way that Dr. Montessori gave physical representation to mathematical quantities, unit, tens, hundreds, thousands, with stamp game, golden beads, checkerboard, racks and tubes. She also gave symbols to the language, to the words that they've got. So what Jen and Melise do are adjectives and nouns and verbs. Verb is red and round and it's a ball because a verb is movement and energy. Red is the sun, heat, movement, rolls around, so that's why it's this color. A noun is a permanent, for the most part, a permanent description of something. So if you try to roll this, it doesn't roll. It's permanent, solid, black like coal, and it's stable and stationary. An adjective describes, and an article, the only 3 words in the English language, a and the. So this is affectionately.
And they all have stories behind them.
Yeah.
And when you present them first to the child, you tell the story like it is a story that, they are very engrossed in. So
yeah. Yeah, it isn't just, this is an article. So there's a whole, exactly. Okay, this is an article, memorize this. Tomorrow, this is an adjective, memorize that. So there's actually a picture of a mother with an adjective and an article, so it's the noun family that they can visualize.
Well, for example, the noun that is black is coal because it's one of the first elements that was found on the planet Earth. And it's also stable like the pyramids in Egypt. So that was, just part of that story. But
and then we, I'm sure, did you take down your noun labeling words? You may look around. There may be little index cards.
Oh, no. Yes, they've
taped to things. So we go around the room and we label everything by nouns. And then here's a verb.
I was going to say, I think there's one right behind you on that.
There you go.
Yeah, there's one that says book.
Does it say
There you
book?
go. It does.
Okay.
It says book.
That's like one of the best moments when the students get this, like the light bulb comes on, they're like, oh my gosh, everything's a noun. And then they want to run around and label everything. They're like,
And
a
then
book,
we have them.
and then a teacher. Yep. It's so funny.
Boy,
Their friends.
boy, girl,
It's
friend.
so funny, but it's great because they kind of get it. There's a new meaning to these words.
Well, and they're attaching that symbol now to that part of speech. So that's what is also different from primary. So now have been given names.
And there's
Sorry,
a way
I
to
taught lower
represent.
elementary before I got moved up here. So
Yes, she has many years. She has more experience with our level than
yeah, that's not true, but anyway. Well, I guess, yes. That's
So it's article, adjective, noun, and now they have a symbol with which they can represent this. Then there's verb, preposition is a bridge, and the awesome thing is, in our classroom, we have the basket and tennis ball. Ours are smaller, they aren't as big, but it's the exact same thing. But now the child is making the association that that's not just sticking the ball somewhere. It's a preposition which indicates where, what's the relationship between them. And, ooh, you do the on top of it. So she'll tell you how we do the lesson. It's awesome.
Okay, one of the ways that my students remember is we take away the rule that the table is a table. We use it as a tool to learn prepositions. And I have a jar full of prepositions and we interact with the table. So step onto the table, crawl under the table. So each of the students is interacting. They pull out their preposition. They use it somehow to relate to the table, and then we continue as like a machine, obviously watching out for one another as we're rolling and crawling toward the table, but they can act within reason how they want, but it's building that relationship. And we talk about building a bridge and connecting those things. So we talk about getting on and off the table. And yes, we do talk a lot about the adverbs and how that describes what you're doing, but with relationship to the table. So as they learn it just is one of those things that helps them just remember.
Right, so where are you?
It's an impression.
They love when you say sit on top of the table, and they look at you like, really? Yeah. Stand on the table. And then they all need to have a term with that particular phrase. And then the adverb is the same kind of thing. It's a word bank, and then we play charades with it. So someone will stand up, and they will stand and go, and then it's, so what are they doing? Hopping, okay, but how are they hopping? Weirdly, well, okay, but like, pick up another one, Miss Quinn, what? But no, slowly. And then you'll give someone one that says hop quickly. And then they begin to discover slowly, quickly. So then there are command cards, is what is the technical name for them. So they're command cards. Walk briskly to the front door. Crawl slowly to the teacher's desk. And it gives them the chance, and charades, please. Who's not to love charades, right? So that's this. I like the name of this. This is the pronoun, and it is the pushy pronoun. Takes the place of the noun. And you got to do that. You kick the noun out of the way, and the pushy pronoun takes the place of the noun. The pushy purple pronoun. And they remember
It's
that.
kind of banged up there.
Well loved.
Yes, it's well used. So the pronoun, whoops, and this is the pink eraser. No matter how many times we tell them it's a conjunction. Oh, you mean the pink eraser? The pink eraser. Conjunction. Conjunction, junction, that's your function. So the truth is, I've actually recommended that some of my students go home and have their parents help them look up conjunction, junction from Schoolhouse Rock, because it explains it really very clearly.
Probably people here that don't know what that is.
Go home and watch what conjunction, junction is on the computer before your kids need to take Schoolhouse Rock. And conjunctions that connect sentences. So in the distinction of connecting, this is going to connect persons, places, or things. I am near the table. A conjunction will in some way connect sentences. I would go outside, but it is freezing today. So I would go outside as a whole sentence. It is freezing outside as a whole sentence. So the conjunction is what connects full ideas or sentences. And this is, well, my experience is, this is probably one of the most difficult ones for them to grasp, especially when you do things like either or, both and, neither nor, that kind of thing. So this is probably the most complicated, which is why it's so far down the food chain. And then this one, interjection. And that's the best one, because once they discover, once you have that lesson, it's an exclamation of surprise. It's an exclamation point. So then that lesson usually turns into, ouch, wow, stop, go, don't, because everybody over-dramatize.
Schoolhouse Rock has one for that too.
But they over-dramatize that one. So this is the whole set. They do not learn these all at once. My first years are just in this realm right now. This box is similar to, if you've done any of the math work, similar to the stamp game and the golden beads. It's a layout to visually see what's happening. And I'm going to go through this oh so fast. This is a Montessori grammar box, MGB, Montessori grammar box. This is a preposition box, and Dr. Montessori was smart. She said, if I make this preposition box green, they are not going to learn a blessed thing, because all they're going to do is look for green, and they'll make it a preposition. So she anchored the symbols, black for noun and red for verb, so those remained the same. But all the rest of the symbols have different colors that are not in the grammar symbol series. So article and adjective are now tan and brown. Preposition is purple. So the first time somebody decides to be smarticles and not do any layout or any thinking, they'll do this whole thing and they'll have pronouns all over the place, and you'll go, really? When did you have a pronouns lesson? Oh. So then this requires that they actually learn what the parts of speech are. They get a grammar box. They divide up all of the bits and pieces of the grammar box, the parts in there. They lay out each of the sentences, and as they lay out each of the sentences, they are hopefully discovering from whence they come. The words are taken out so they'll remember what kind of word it is. So they've then laid it out, and then they have a series of grammar symbols, and they'll look and say, pour water out of a cup. And then, let me close these up. So they'll do that.
Are you going to be a student?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just was wondering if you were going to show
There.
them how you look through because that's, I think, really
The
important to
hardest.
show them,
Yeah.
is how you pick it out of the box. And
So this is then what they will come up with. So they've got all of this already laid out.
So what Mrs. Bowden and Amanda's referencing is, as they continue with this lesson, if it's new and this is their first time working with prepositions, they might not know or remember all of the prepositions there are. So they might see the word out of and think, maybe out might be a verb. So as they're going through, this work also is a self-checking work, because as they continue through, they'll notice, this says look at, that's not what I'm looking for, let me check another pile. And they're learning, as they're flipping through, they're reading or recognizing the words that they're going through, so they're also absorbing a little bit of that to help them find the pieces that they are looking for. And then they're also recognizing, okay, I was in the preposition box, that's where it was, and I found in and to. The next sentence might have one of those, and it would be a recognized, oh, I remember that was a preposition, that was in was in there. So,
the other thing is, when you do the second sentence on there, what does that first sentence say?
oh yes. So the first sentence on the card says pour water in a cup. So the second sentence, when we would first lay this out, we would put pour water in a cup. We'd have it laid out. The student would, after they've laid out all of the symbols, they would write it down in their journal. They would symbolize it with the symbolizer. They would continue to move through and then lay out the sentence again. Now it is pour water out of a cup. And they can see how their sentence changes, but again is within the same pattern. And then they relate, it's a step further from the command cards, because yes, they can act these out. However, it kind of shows the relationships between, and they continue to build upon them.
And it's isolating the
Preposition.
which is the grammar box that you're working on.
The one that we're working on. The next thing they'll do, this is a symbolizing template. It just makes it easier instead of having random shapes and sizes of random shapes and sizes. So after they finish, they then write down the sentence, and then using the symbolizer and using the information that they've already had checked. So this has been checked by a guide to make sure that they have properly symbolized it. And then they will copy and use the template to trace the, gotta make sure I put the right ones, to trace these. Now the fun thing about this one that I chose first, the words out of are actually combined together, and it's called a prepositional phrase. It's a little bit of an advanced concept for the kids initially, but this is a box C. So there's box A and B, which will not have that kind of a prepositional phrase in it yet. And then after they have this, the next thing they do is choose the grammar symbol colors. So we have colored pencils that mimic all of the colors for the grammar symbols. I will spare you the... So then, voila!
It's like a cooking show. show.
It's, yeah, yes, and out of the oven, I put in the breadcrumbs and they came right back out. And so then they would color those, the symbols in, and then they would be able to see what it is that the sentence looks like, in the same way that when they do math with the stamp game. And if you haven't seen math with the stamp game, you need to come and observe and watch that. They will begin to see and visualize what the sentences look like and what that kind of cadence sounds like. Put the water in a cup. Go stand with your friend. Take your hands off my work. And I will just tell you, my daughter Elizabeth loved to write. And when she was in upper elementary, she wrote copiously. And the teacher, instead of saying the words, Elizabeth, would you please vary your sentence structure? Well, I don't know about you, but at 10, 11, 12, sentence structure, I don't know, I'm putting capitals at the beginning and periods at the end. I'm in good shape. But Mrs. Felker told her to take one of the pages that she had written and symbolize the words that were on the page. And when Elizabeth finished symbolizing them, what she noticed for herself, not by Mrs. Felker telling her, but what she noticed for herself was that almost every sentence in her entire page was article, adjective, noun, verb, article, adjective, noun. Article, adjective, 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 noun, verb, article, adjective, because she loved adjectives. So all of her sentences had the same, and Elizabeth had all of these symbols and noticed that there was very little representation from pronouns and adverbs and conjunctions. And she also learned that it was just one exclamation point that you needed in a sentence. But because of that, it gave her a chance to see that her, quote, sentence structure could be altered in order to make her writing more interesting. So it stuck with her, not because Mrs. Felker said change something that she didn't quite understand.
Can you tell that she needs to color it?
I do, you can tell. OCD,
No, I'm just saying
obnoxious compulsive, not
No, I'm
obsessive.
a Montessori student, we want to do that.
Okay, good. So it was making me crazy.
I know.
Anyway, so it's a very visual, tactile, kinesthetic, all of those words, way for the kids to see and understand how language gets formed. And if you look, Jim started it way back in beginnings. So by the time they come to us, they'll see the basket again with that ball and it'll be like, oh my gosh, I already did that, but I just called it the baskets and the ball thing. I didn't know I was actually doing prepositions back then. And it's the same thing in math when they do the decanomial layout. It's a plug for when we do the math strand, you should come. When they do the decanomial layout, they'll all of a sudden at the very end of it notice, well, I'll be darned, it's the pink tower. Didn't know I was doing decanomial layouts whenever I was doing the pink tower in primary.